Hello and welcome to Video Game Hangover. I'm Randy Dickinson, and I'm in Harrisburg, Pennsylvania.
Hello, I'm DJ Ross. I'm in Mountain View, California.
Each week or so here on Video Game Hangover, we talk about the games that have been keeping us up at night. This week, that list includes Unicorn Overlord, Pocket Card Jockey Ride On, and Princess Peach Showtime.
Man, that is, yeah, that's a lot of words.
I have been tricking myself for the last couple of weeks since I discovered Unicorn Overlord to think of two words that start with U and O that kind of have the same kind of rhythm to them.
Oh, yeah.
And I was terrified that I was going to say underwear overload or unibrow overwatch or something like that.
Unibrow overhang.
Yes.
Unicode overflow.
And I had to really concentrate on reading Unicorn Overlord from my TV screen. So I got it right. I feel real good about it.
Yeah, it's deceptively difficult to get through that whole title. Just two words. Well,
like I said, I've been tricking myself for the last couple of weeks, and I'm really good at
oh yeah, well you're just undermining yourself.
Right, not setting myself up for failure. Remembering what the actual title of the game is at some point when I need to know it.
I was thinking earlier today because I've seen a bunch of those going on as well. It's just like, oh man, I hope I can say that title correctly. It's gonna be real confusing when they announce the Unicorn Overlord feature film starring Benedict Cumberbatch and Uma Thurman.
Yeah. So yeah, on this week's show, I'm excited for you to talk about Unicycle Overcoat.
Yeah, Unicycle Oversteer.
But yeah. Before we get much further, we should talk about Monday night streams. We'll be streaming a game next Monday night.
We will. Or yeah. Yes.
Yeah. Can you confirm or deny that that is an accurate statement?
Sounds accurate to me.
Yeah, we would love for you to join us Monday night, March 25th at 10 p.m. Eastern Time. DJ and I will be playing co-op spooky adventure game called We Were Here Expeditions: The Friendship.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's the latest in this We Were Here co-op sort of puzzle series, which we've had a lot of fun with in the past.
It says here that you and I are trying to solve puzzles and escape a spooky abandoned amusement park.
Oh, I thought it was on a ship or something, because they're in the description and everything, they lean into, friendship so hard.
Huh. Is it
an amusement park?
Is it an amusement park on a ship?
Spooky amusement park ship? Well, I guess we'll find out.
Am I reading the description from a different game?
I don't know.
Underwear over something? Yeah. Overcoat? Well,
I guess we'll find out next week.
Yes. Yep.
Underwear overcoat. I don't know
that's my uniform for work every day.
That's
overcoat.
You got it covered.
Yeah, that's really all the important stuff is covered right there.
Yeah.
Please join us, won't you? We will be streaming at twitch.tv. Totally lost control of the plot here. Twitch.tv/VGHangover. And again, that is Monday, 3/25 at 10 p.m. Eastern Time. DJ and I playing a co-op survival thing together.
Yeah, should be fun. Yeah. Come watch and see how many times we freeze to death on this haunted amusement park boat.
We've played quite a few, I think, if not all of these We Were Here games at some point together in the past usually across a lot of different Extra Life events.
Yeah.
There is always some comical deaths of one of us typically freezing to death or doing a puzzle incorrectly and the other one falls into a pit of lava or something like that. So
it's not comical to me. I feel like I'm always the one who's falling into the pit. And you're just
frequently, yes.
Guess I didn't read the instructions fast enough, and meanwhile I'm just burning alive.
Yeah, you didn't describe the glyph to me accurately that you can see on your screen, and I picked the wrong one, and then you dropped into a pit of acid.
Oh, so it's my fault. I didn't describe it. Well, anyway, tune in next week for more of these shenanigans. Should be good. A lot of fun.
Yeah, this is an interesting one because it's a little asynchronous too, in that you and I see different things sometimes. So it'll be curious to see how we do and how that transpires across a stream.
Yeah. I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah. Cool. For more on that, you can go to our Discord.
Yeah. We have the little event set up. Easy to keep track of there.
Absolutely.
Man, so speaking of events, I have 2 exciting announcements.
Oh.
One is quick. I just wanted to wish everybody this Thursday, March the 21st, happy Final Fantasy XIV on Xbox Day. All those Xbox fans been waiting 10 years for this game to come out on their platform, and now it finally has. So enjoy, everybody.
Wow.
It's exciting. Quite a long time in the making. So apparently Microsoft's very stubborn about some points on this, but they made it happen. So perseverance pays off, I suppose.
So stubborn in the way that Microsoft was the holdup in getting Final Fantasy on Xbox?
It feels like Microsoft was the holdup because they said stuff like the producer at Square Enix has said, like, you know, if they were going to put it on Xbox, they would want to ensure that, you know, everybody would play on the same servers as everybody on PC and PlayStation. And I think there would be no additional subscription fee. And Microsoft was being very stubborn about that. And they got them to budge on the unified servers thing. So they will be able to play with everybody who is currently playing the game, which is very cool. Just sort of like a new addition to the existing community. They were not, however, able to convince them to drop the extra sub fee, which has been kind of a point of controversy. So it means in order to play it on Xbox, once you graduate from the free trial version, you have to pay for the 14 subscription as well as whichever tier of Game Pass enables the online play. So
wow.
That's a bit disappointing. That's not how it works on PlayStation.
Yeah. That seems surprisingly anti-consumer for Xbox.
Oh yeah. It seems like anti-Xbox specifically, which is a weird decision for them to make.
It's typically Sony that it can be kind of obstructionist about some of these things. It was what was Among Us. They didn't want unified servers. There was some
that's right. Yeah, they were like a big holdout on Fortnite for a while, weren't they?
Fortnite, I don't remember. What's the game with the cars that play soccer?
Oh yes, I think that's actually the name of it. The Cars That Play Soccer.
The Cars That Play Soccer. So yeah, Sony didn't want crossplay available on that, or was the holdup in crossplay coming to that for some reason? So
yeah.
I tend to think of them being the one who kind of gets in the way of progress in that way. So
that's coincidentally is also how I think of Sony.
So I have a little, maybe not disheartened because I'm not quite that emotionally invested, but surprised that it is the Xbox that is the holdup in this situation.
Yeah, it really feels like all it's going to do is discourage people from playing the game, which is it's not what you want.
And you would think Xbox needs all the help they can get.
You would also think that, yes. But anyway, should be a happy occasion for those people. Hopefully they're able to sort that out. I feel like a lot of Xbox owners have Game Pass anyway, so maybe it's not as big of a hurdle for all of those, or for some of those people anyway.
Do you have sage advice, like first 3 things you should do when you play the game for people who just getting online for the first time on Xbox?
Oh man, the first one thing, man.
Charge your controller.
Yeah, that's a good one. Find out which worlds your friends are playing on, because that can make a difference. I know a lot of people who, it's better now because you can sort of hop from world to world. But, if all your friends are playing on one world, and you would like to play with them, try and sign up on that same world.
Oh, so you have to be sort of deliberate about it as you kind of join the game.
Yeah, like you can pick which world you start out on.
Gotcha.
And it's, it's not going to ruin your entire gameplay experience if you end up on different worlds. But, a little bit of coordination and planning at the start of your, thousands of hours of playing this game can go a long way.
Sure.
Oh, man. Okay, so the second announcement is I have done it. I finished Persona 3.
What?
So, yes, one Persona game under my belt.
Damn. Very impressive. Like Persona 3, like the original vanilla Persona 3.
Sort of.
Not the reload thing that just came out.
Not the new one that came out.
Gotcha.
But also not the original. It's the Fez edition for PS2, which is like more or less the original. But if we're really splitting hairs, it's not technically the very first version 1 that came out on the PS2.
Right. And then I think the one that has been mostly like played and adapted was the PSP one.
Yes, it's not the portable one either.
No, interesting. Well, congratulations. That's impressive.
Thank you. It took at least 125 hours because that's what the timer on my final save file says.
Damn.
And it was real mediocre. No, it was good. I liked it. I'm pretty sure I liked it. I just, I've done a lot of thinking about this game because it gives you a lot of time to think and evaluate the choices you've made. I just feel like, we have talked about this before. It's a very long game.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like it has some pacing issues that would probably leave it in a more favorable light if they had not been as noticeable. But overall, I think it was pretty good. I think I enjoyed it for the most part.
Cool. It is the darkest Persona.
Is it?
In my experience, in my sort of opinion, yeah, I think so.
Oh, you've played, you played 3, 4, and 5, right?
Yes. Yep.
Okay. Yeah, okay, so that tracks, I think. That's what I've heard.
Yeah.
I was going to ask how it stacked up to Persona 1 and 2, which is a different question.
Yeah, I don't know the answer to that. I've played all the kind of old Shin Megami Tensei games and stuff like that, which were kind of the precursors, but not Persona 1 and 2. Those are really hard to sort of access easily, I think, on modern systems. Yeah. So it's definitely not something we could just sort of power up my PS5 and they're right there.
I heard, they remade Persona 1, right? And I heard, like, the new rumor is there's a Persona 2 remake in the works, which people are real excited about, because that is like, for the real hardcore fans, that is, I think, considered to be the best in the series.
Oh, interesting. Okay. No, I don't know. Did not hear about that.
So that would be exciting.
Yeah.
One thing I learned about Persona 3, which I think is, maybe some of the reason for the massive pacing issues, is that this is the first one that had the whole, daily school life format. Like, Persona 1 and 2 didn't have that. I guess they were, more traditional JRPG structure.
Oh, interesting.
But yeah, I was really surprised because that is such a thing I closely associate with the Persona games. Having, you're having to play through the entire school year and, go through the days of the week and go to class and hang out with your classmates and all that.
And take tests.
Yeah. And go to the clubs and after school club, not like going clubbing. That wasn't right. Persona 3 anyway. But I was really surprised that this was the first Persona game to feature that. And I wonder if it like, with that in mind, it sort of excuses a little bit the fact that pretty much nothing happens for like a good 45 hours of the storyline, of the quote-unquote storyline. It feels like maybe they were just giving you time to adjust to this weird format, because it is pretty unusual coming from any other RPG. Yeah.
I remember resenting it quite a bit the first time I played Persona 3. Thinking,
the schedule?
What is this game doing? Why do I have to do this? I don't like, why can't I just fight monsters? Mm-hmm. I was not thrilled with that. And to your point, now it is the thing that I sort of most closely associate with Persona games and their structure. And I kind of welcome it, actually.
Yeah, I went back and forth on it quite a bit because I was in the same boat at certain points where I was like, I just want to go to the dungeon, fight monsters. But at certain point, I just turned around on it and I was like, okay, well, now I want to hang out with my schoolmates and figure out what their deal is. And I got to take tests to get my stats up or whatever. But it still feels like, man, they really just put an entire school year in this game, huh? Seems like Well, after playing through this, I was just thinking like, oh man, what a great experiment! What a cool premise. Didn't work out 100%, obviously, because it like drags at points. Surely they will have refined this by the time the sequels come around, and it just sounds like that's not the case at all. You just play through the entire school year still.
Yes, yeah, it's still very much the structure of it. It feels less clunky, and I think particularly when you get to Persona 5, there's definitely a better balance between sort of doing the fun stuff and doing kind of the necessary stuff. You still get that that push-pull between, like, well, after school, I can, go fight monsters, or I can go get ramen with my buddy Dave. Or, or whatever. I have detention. And if you pick one, you don't get to go back and choose the other ones later. It just like a school year, the day moves on and you go to the next day. So there's definitely a lot of stress in sort of choosing how you pick your time. And that never goes away. That's in Persona 4.
Yeah. I learned to deal with that towards the end. Which is a shame because, I don't know if it's really a shame or not, but I felt like they crammed all the really interesting story bits into the second half, or not even the second half, like the last 30% is where all the really interesting sort of like plot twists and character development happens. And I found myself thinking like, okay, well, this is really cool. Imagine if they had, spent the entire game sort of like, you can't drop it in the first 10 hours of the game because it's like, it gets pretty intense. It's very dark, as you were saying. But, if there had been a little more build-up, it wouldn't have felt quite so just jammed into the final hours here. Yeah. And especially with some of the social links, a lot of them start out super slow, where they're just like, yeah, let's go get ramen, like you were saying. Yeah. And then after that, they're just like, all right, you have a new buddy to get ramen with after school, and you just like don't really know anything about them.
Well, yeah, and you don't quite sort of understand the value of any of that stuff until you get 70 hours in, right?
Yeah. Well, I mean, it feels like everything in the game is paced similarly, where it's just like a very slow ramp up until you get to like 70% of the way through, and then you're just like, oh no, everything's happening. Oh, I have to keep track of all this stuff.
So glad I got ramen that day.
Yeah. But it was cool. I just, I'm curious about Persona 4 and 5 now to see if they handle the pacing a little better. Or I can't imagine it would be worse than Persona 3, because there are still a lot of times where it feels very much like a PS2 game from that era, where it's quite clunky and not quite as refined as a more modern game would be.
Yeah. I think Persona 4, they definitely kind of double down on character development and stuff like that. So you get a lot more of that. The friend circle is much more kind of compelling with some more kind of unique personalities, and it does make it like more fun to like want to hang out with them after school and stuff like that. I felt like the characters were a little bland in Persona 3, and then in 4, much more memorable and much more sort of distinct in their personality. And then 5, the team in 5 is just great. So that does sort of feel like the place where Atlas has put kind of the most maybe growth in this series, is really kind of making those characters memorable and making it feel like that all that social stuff kind of has value, and making it feel kind of compelling and exciting to hang out with them and do kind of mundane things and have conversations and stuff, rather than, fighting monsters all the time.
Yeah. That does sound cool. There were definitely times when I was just like, I don't know if I want to hang out with these people right now.
Right, exactly. Are there no more people in the school? Is there anybody else, really?
Right.
Yeah. So I would be curious, obviously with you playing, 3 much more recently than I have, I would be curious to hear what your kind of impression of 4 is if you chose to jump into it.
Oh, I'm going to do it. It's downloaded on the Switch. It's ready to go.
Nice.
I feel like I maybe need a little bit of a break before I jump right to the next thing. Plus, a bunch of other enormous RPGs are coming out, so I kind of strategize a little bit. But no, as much as I complain about this being a very long game and a bit of a slog at points, I'm like weirdly excited to start up Persona 4. Probably do that sooner rather than later.
It's the year of Persona, everyone.
Yeah, it's just, that's every year.
Right. It's true. Well, you got the clock is ticking. Persona 6 is going to come out eventually. So
no, it's not. Who knows when that's going to come out? Man, my favorite thing about this entire experience, I feel like I've been playing this game for 10 years, but I was using this walkthrough. Primarily, I was using several walkthroughs. Like, let's be honest, there's a lot of information that you need to sort of glean from other sources about this game.
Sure.
But the one that I went back to the most frequently was this one that was on an IGN based on the portable version, I think, because they would have everything broken down by month. So they would say, like, next Tuesday in September or whatever, there's going to be a test and here are all the answers. So it's like, aha, I'll just refer to this little guide when the test comes up. So that was sort of just like a useful resource, and also it really helped me just sort of like get my team in order for stuff that was coming up on the calendar. So I found myself referring to that quite a bit. But then by the time this was actually September rolled around in the game, I was like, all right, new month, load up the next page of the walkthrough. And I click on the September link, and it says, Persona 3 Portable, September. September content will go here. So it's like, even IGN, whoever's writing the guide, couldn't finish the game.
Oh, no.
It's just too long for them to deal with. So they made it, when does the game start? Like the March or April, I think. So they got 5 or 6 months in. Give them partial credit for that. But I thought that was hysterical.
You played more of Persona 3 than IGN's collective team did.
Yes, at some point they're just like, nobody's going to play it past like August. We can stop it working on this thing.
Oh, wow.
And like I said, that was the portable version, so it has just been sitting there unfinished for the last 10 or 15 years. So that was hilarious.
I mean, that's really something, because and there's probably some other greater explanation there, but that guides team at IGN, man, is very detailed. Like
the guides are impressive. Like, as much a flack as IGN gets for, I don't know everything how quality it's everything else they do. The guide, the parts of it that did exist were quite helpful and quite detailed. So that was appreciated.
When not Breath of the Wild, the one after Breath of the Wild. Let's say Breath of the Wild.
Breath of the Wild 2.
Tears of the Kingdom. When Tears of the Kingdom came out, the IGN Nintendo podcast, Nintendo Voice Chat, had the guide's writers on to talk about kind of their experience and how much of it they had played and stuff like that. And like, these guys go deep, and they have a very short period of time to do it. So just like cataloging like every piece of wildlife or every collectible or every fusion you can do in the Zelda games is like an intense undertaking. So yeah, it was kind of interesting to see their perspective on how this video game was assembled and how to break it down into something that kind of was consumable and fit in a wiki.
I'd be really curious to see, or just to like learn how the guide making process actually sort of works out these days. Like, do they have help from the developer on anything, or are they really just like sort of unearth everything themselves like they would back in the old days?
Yeah, or they're just playing a retail copy of the game.
Yeah. I just feel like there's so much stuff that you would never even consider, or like you would never discover until you have a million people all playing it at once. But you are the ones who are expected to just be the definitive resource on stuff like that. So you need to know like where all the little Korok seeds are. You need to know all the little chemical combinations of items and everything, which seems like just the hive mind of the internet will uncover the first week while you're scrambling to get the first chapter of your guide out the door. Right.
And by the way, get it done by release day. Right. So, yeah. That's it was interesting. I don't remember them getting quite that molecular about like what their like how they did it. But just, what the kind of monumental undertaking it was to do that. The Persona games, I think, are a little easier. They're less sort of collectory in that way, and they're definitely more, scripted and on rails and have very sort of specific milestones as you move through the calendar. But consuming something like the new Zelda games, obviously, can be such a freewheeling experience. Everybody's going to approach it differently.
Yeah. And spoken like somebody who's never tried to do a Penta Persona fusion before.
That's what I was going to say is...
Definitely had spreadsheets open for that one.
A good time for you to jump into Persona 4 because you know all of your arcana, you know your entire bestiary.
Yes, more or less. Still remember what the spell names mean.
All of that stuff pretty much carries through all of the Persona games. So once you've got it in your brain, it's there forever.
That was like one of my like more prevailing complaints about the game, other than just the structure of it, is that like all the ability names are, I think they're in Sanskrit, maybe? I don't even know. They may be multiple languages, but it is just so impossible to remember. It's like, which is the fire spell? Which is the AoE fire spell? Like, what do all these words mean? None of this makes any sense. Meanwhile, over in Final Fantasy, it's like, would you like to cast Fire 1 or Fire 2 or Fire 3? Like, I'll go with 3. That sounds good to me. So I appreciate the just sort of weird, like added flavor of these very foreign sounding spell names, but definitely did not speed up the gameplay. Just having to remember what everything does.
Yeah, I think they get better names later because I'm remembering like Frizz and stuff like
Frizz,
that.
yeah. Well, Dragon Quest, that's a Dragon Quest spell, right?
Oh, is that Dragon Quest? Okay, man, I'm confusing with Dragon Quest now. Never mind.
Ancient Sanskrit text, Frizz and Frizzle.
But cool, congratulations. That's a very exciting milestone. A thing that I myself have not done, despite sort of being the self-proclaimed, Persona fanboy. I've never seen credits roll on a Persona game without having looked it up on YouTube. So,
gonna say we've now finished one Persona game between the two of us.
Correct. Yes, yeah. Despite having attempted to play like 9 of them.
Despite collective like 5,000 hours of Persona games played.
So maybe this is the year. If you can finish Persona 3, I certainly can finish Persona 5.
It might happen.
All right. I should make that happen.
Or, at least the Muso one. I keep wanting to call it, I keep thinking it's like a soccer game because it's like Persona Strikers, right?
Oh, right. Yes, yeah.
But no, I have to remind myself, no, it's not a soccer game. Although that would be
Mario
terrific.
Soccer game is Mario Strikers.
Right.
That just seems confusing.
Well, anyway.
I would play a Persona soccer game.
Oh, yeah, no, it'd be great. They got the dancing game, they've got the fighting game. Why not have a sports game?
Yeah.
Why not have a kart racing game? We'd play that.
There's enough characters there. Pull it together, guys.
Yeah.
Well, cool. That's exciting. I did not think that was going to happen this week.
Oh, no, I didn't think it was going to happen, like, in my lifetime. But I had to do it.
Nice. Proud of you.
Oh. All right, what did we play this week that was not Persona?
Princess Peach Showtime.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we played the demo. We should be clear, this game is not out yet. The demo is available on Nintendo Switch. And
comes out soon, though, right?
I'm sorry, what? Soon,
comes
yeah,
out soon, yeah.
This week, I believe. Yeah. So by the time this show comes out, it will be out, and that negates everything I just said.
Oh, well. Well,
yeah.
Now you can try it.
What did you think, DJ?
I didn't like it.
You didn't like it?
Well, I thought it was very cute.
Yeah.
But it feels like a game made for children.
It is
specifically very, very young children. And by the time I was like, I had heard about that going in, because some of the early reports were like, oh, yes, it feels very like on the easy side, like it's designed for younger audiences. So even with that in mind, I was like, okay, well, maybe it'll still be interesting. But by the time I was wrapping up the second stage in the demo, I was just like, I am ready for this to, like, ready to stop playing this game.
Oh, wow, really?
Yeah. Which I'm kind of sad about, because the previews make it look kind of fun. Like, because she's got all these different jobs. It feels like there are only 2 different stages in the demo, but the premise of the game is like she's got all these different roles, because it's like it takes place in a theater. So not only is she changing her costume, but the entire sort of structure of the game changes to sort of match whatever play she's inhabiting. So the first one is you're like a kind of a swashbuckler. It's got like a fencing foil. And it plays like an action game a little bit. And the next one, you're decorating cakes, which is a completely different game. And they showed a little footage of some of the other costumes, and there's one that looks like a fighting game.
Mm-hmm.
There's one where you're like Detective Peach. I'm like, oh, what are you doing as Detective Peach? I'm going to try that one.
There's a superhero one where you're flying around fighting bad guys and punching and stuff like that. Yeah.
So that looks very cool. That looks very exciting. But just the actual, like, when it got down to it, fighting enemies as like pirate Peach. She's not a pirate. What was that character supposed to be?
She's like a swashbuckler. Yeah.
Yeah, she's like one of the Three Musketeers.
Yeah.
It was very simple. And it's not it's not Devil May Cry, which is not what I was expecting. But it's definitely closer to the or farther from the Devil May Cry end of the spectrum.
Yeah. In
terms of like difficulty and complexity.
Yes, I think very sort of similar to kind of the most recent rush of Kirby games. It feels very kind of approachable and definitely, maybe geared for a younger audience. Yeah, I mean, the Mario games have been very sly about kind of scaling, and that they have kind of like, easy objectives for maybe younger players or more inexperienced players. I guess age doesn't dictate that, but more inexperienced players. And they have slightly more devilish objectives for, hardened criminals like you and I.
Yes.
And
eventually, you play enough video games, you just turn into a criminal.
Right. And yeah, it didn't feel like, at least from the demo, Peach scaled in that way. It definitely sort of like kept the kid gloves on throughout the entire demo. And it's very approachable. It's very charming. It was fun to see her change characters and beat up bad guys and decorate cakes. There were like 5 or 10 stars, I think, you could collect in each level. And I didn't collect all 10 on the first try. I had to go back and like look for hidden secrets and do other objectives and get a high score on the cake decorating and stuff like that. So maybe it scales in that way. But yeah, it was a little bit of a pushover.
Yeah. So that was another indicator for me is like they have the hidden stuff in every Mario game, like for the last 10 years or so. And I'm always like, oh, I missed one. I'll just go back and get it later. I wonder where it is. And in this one, when I realized I had missed one, I was just like, I don't want to play this level again. I'll just live with it. And that was like, oh, that is so different from my reaction when this happens in a Mario game.
Right. No, I need to go get the big coin that I missed in the middle.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so that is one sort of question I have about how the rest of the game ramps up. Because like I said, the demo is only 2 stages. And it does seem like you revisit the different settings multiple times. Like I think even in the demo it said like you're playing Chef Peach or whatever stage 1. I was like, oh, okay, so maybe by the time we get to stage 3 or 4, it'll ramp up a bit. I don't know if that is the case, but I thought, well, maybe by that time it'll be more interesting to me. But also I don't really, at this point I'm not really interested in playing a bunch of other stages that are sort of on this same level as what you encounter in the demo.
I definitely still want to play the whole thing. I mean, I know you agree with this, so I don't mean to sort of put words in your mouth, but I don't think a game has to be hard to be fun. It'd be nice.
No, I do agree with that.
A little more challenging, maybe, but charm goes a long way. I think this game is certainly beautiful and charming and kind of fun. And it's cool to see Peach take center stage and to not sort of embrace kind of the easy path, which would to just make it like a 2D or 3D platformer with Peach as the star rather than Mario.
Yes.
It does not play like any other Mario game that I can think of. It's closer to Luigi's Mansion kind of experience, I think, which is cool. I love those games.
Yeah, I do like that, like you said, they're not just using the Mario template. Like every character gets their own sort of take on things, like their own genre of games.
Right. So yeah, I think it was, it didn't turn me off. I think it just sort of confirmed what I kind of thought it was going to be all along. And I'm still interested in playing the main game.
All right. Well, you have to let me know if they ramp it up after the first couple of stages.
Yeah.
I really just wanted to play the Kung Fu level, and that was not in the demo, so I was a little upset about that.
Cool. What else did we play this week? We played Unicorn Overlord.
Yeah. Unicorn Overhorn.
Yes.
Yep. I don't know.
Unicron. Isn't that the Transformers?
Yeah, one of the... I'm not a Transformers guy, I couldn't tell you.
Oh, okay. GoBots, you prefer GoBots, right?
Yes, big GoBots fan, as everybody knows. No, but Unicorn Overlord, I played a lot of this game.
Did you really? You streamed it last week, which I had to miss, unfortunately. I had a concert that night, but...
yeah. So I technically only played the demo, but man, it is a massive demo. I like was trying to figure out how long it was, because I was like going into the stream. I thought, oh, I'll play a little bit of the Unicorn Overlord, and then maybe I'll check out some other stuff after the demo finishes. And no, it just kept going. People have said it's like, oh, it's a 5-hour demo, and I think what that means is it's not like there's 5 hours worth of gameplay in the demo. It just cuts you off after 5 hours. Because I like a few hours into it, I notice on the pause screen, so the status menu, it says like demo time remaining, and there's a countdown. Just like, what happens when the countdown finishes? And it really felt at times like maybe this is just the entire game, but they put a time limit on it. So I don't know, but I was also playing it fairly slowly because it's a very complicated game. So maybe it does just end at some point and encourage you to go try the full thing. But, the full game is out at this point. You can go check it out if you're interested.
And your progress carries. I know that to be true.
Yes,
right?
just thankfully.
Demo carries.
I did end up playing like 4, 5, or 6 hours. I didn't run out the demo timer, but it also doesn't run the whole time you're playing. Like, I think it pauses if you're just playing around in the menus, which is very generous. But this is it's a strategy game from Vanillaware, who most recently did 13 Sentinels, which was amazing. And before that, they've done stuff like Dragon's Crown and what was the other game I always associate with Vanillaware? Not Grimoire. It's the other one Odin Sphere.
Yeah.
Just, yes, very common combinations of words that you say every day.
Right there on the tip of my tongue, yeah.
Right. But Unicorn Overlord is it's a weird hybrid of like real-time strategy and like sort of tactics light. I've seen a lot of comparisons to this old Super Nintendo game called Ogre Battle, which was actually the predecessor to Tactics Ogre, which is like probably the most like typical tactics genre game out of all the ones that I just mentioned, because it's it just takes place on a grid that you maneuver your soldiers around, and you can kind of picture what that's like if you played any of these games, like Final Fantasy Tactics or maybe even XCOM is pretty similar at that point. Mm-hmm. But in Ogre Battle, you would control these different sort of units, and they would all move around on a big map in sort of real time, and then when they ran into each other, they would like a little battle would play out. And it would sort of unfold based on the units you would assign to the characters you would assign to that unit. And it was very obtuse, partially because it was just an old Super Nintendo game. But I thought it was it's very weird that now somebody else has made a game that feels very much inspired by that. And I thought, okay, well, maybe this is my chance to figure out what the deal was with Ogre Battle. Maybe they will explain how this genre of strategy game is supposed to work. So it's very weird. Like I said, you assemble these little units of up to 6 characters. And the characters are sort of who you would expect to run into in sort of like a medieval like tactics game. You've got your assortment of knights and lancers and archers and all those sort of archetypes. And they all have their different attributes. And you put them down on these little 2x3 grids. So yeah, six units, or 6 characters in each one of these units. And then you deploy them on this map, and the map looks like any sort of like RTS map, like Warcraft or Starcraft. You have your main base, and there are a bunch of little points of interest, like enemy strongholds, and then there's the big enemy fortress that is usually the main objective you have to capture for that mission. And you deploy your guys, and you send them around the map, and they wander into other enemy units. And probably the weirdest thing, or the thing that takes the most getting used to about this game, is that when a battle starts between your guys and the enemy unit, you don't actually control the battle. It just sort of plays out based on who is fighting at the time.
Oh. So
it really is all about the preparation and sort of the setup of how you like compose your units and what skills they have. And man, if that is what you're into in a game like this, if you're like really into like party synergy, this is the game for you, because there's like a million different little levers and switches you can flip to you like build up your units and put different equipment and skills on them. and they all sort of play off each other, or, ideally they all play off each other and support each other. And then you've got sort of like the rock, paper, scissors stuff happening where certain unit types are strong against this other unit, but they're weak against like this other one. Then you have to balance out and figure out like what units your enemy is deploying. So you're not just wiped out immediately because your units are ineffective. There is so much going on. And it's very cool. It's like a little bit overwhelming because it's just a lot to take in during the demo. But it does ease you in pretty gradually. The whole demo feels like kind of this 5-hour tutorial, actually, because it starts you off with kind of an all-rounder unit, and then gradually introduces new unit types where you'll run into somebody and like, oh no, they've all got like thieves in their unit and who are very good at dodging attacks. But, just in time, a bunch of archers joined our army. And they're like all their attacks like hit 100% of the time, so they can take out those thieves and break through the front lines and all that stuff. So it sort of just keeps doing that throughout the demo, where here's a new unit, here's how you counter it, and it'll sort of give you other suggestions of how you compose your units once you have all these new characters to play around with. So that's why I ended up spending a lot of time just playing around in the menus in Unicorn Overlord. I was just trying to figure out, what is the best combination that I should be using? Like, what am I missing? Like, how should I be composing my units for them to be more effective? Because before you even get into an encounter, it'll show you, like, the predicted outcome. So you can see, like, oh, this one, like, if I put unit A against the enemy unit, they, they just run them over. They take no damage. They completely wipe out the other unit. But if I had gone in with unit B, like my unit would have gotten completely wiped out. So why is that happening? How can I change the composition on this one, or like change their skills or something to make them more effective? Or maybe I just like have to not put them against that specific type of unit. Maybe they have a different function somewhere else on the battlefield. So there's a lot of stuff going on.
Like in an RPG, you're not picking your attacks or when to use magic or anything like that. You're really kind of just queuing up the team and hoping it's the right people with the right skills to just sort of autoplay, essentially, from there.
Right.
Interesting.
The best you can do is just like set up your team and sort of look over their skills. Because everybody also they've got like, what do they call it? They've got their active skills, which is sort of like their attacks usually. But then they have these passive skills, which are support skills. So, for instance, like some characters, their support skill will be they do a heal at the end of the turn. Or some characters get an extra attack at the end of the turn. Or they have, like if the enemy has ranged attacks, they are more effective at guarding against those. So you put a bunch of those guys up against a unit that has like a bunch of archers in it. Their archers will be ineffective, and it means your frontline guys are still alive, so they can go and like run up and take out the archers or whatever. So you kind of set them up with an expectation of how things are going to go, and usually it goes how you expect. But there's just so much going on. Sometimes things get unpredictable. But like I was saying, I never really learned how to play Ogre Battle. They do a very good job of just explaining how, basically how the game works, like all the different rules, even though there's so much to keep track of. That, aside from just the enormous number of different units you have to play around with, it's pretty easy to pick up and just sort of like stumble your way through. At least that's sort of what I did.
Man, I don't think I've ever played a game kind of structured like that before. It's usually kind of about the turn place. It's usually you take your turn, they take their turn, and you're kind of picking making your choices as you go and kind of reacting and leading the enemies you're fighting against. So that is a really kind of unique approach that I can't really get my brain around.
Yeah. It does end up feeling a little bit more like StarCraft or something, like a traditional RTS, in that, in those games you'd sort of assemble like your little squads of guys, right? You'd have your Marines and then some support soldiers or whatever. And you have a general idea of what their strengths are and what sort of matchups they'll be strong at. But then once you actually get into a confrontation on the field, unless you're like, one of the top StarCraft players or whatever, and maybe this speaks more to my level of skill with StarCraft, you're just sort of watching the battle play out. You're not really invested or in control of what each individual Marine is doing. You're just like, oh yeah, well, this looks like a good unit for them to attack, so I'm going to have them attack them and hope we don't get ambushed by, a bunch of tanks or something, because that is going to, really ruin their day. So, yeah, in Unicorn Overlord, it is really mostly in just the preparation and making sure your units are, you have units to deal with any sort of situation that arises. But you also have, even if it turns out you have not set up your units correctly, you have a lot of other options that you can execute outside of battle as well. Like you have Valor points, which you can spend on different skills, or you can use like healing items or buff items on your characters between battles to get them back on their feet, or you can like send them to an allied base to garrison and heal and get their stamina back. There's just like a lot of stuff going on. And you can just pause the entire game at any time, so it's not quite as stressful as playing a StarCraft match. So if you're really like not having things are not going your way in one mission, you can just like take a break and figure out like maybe I should deploy some different guys or recompose one of my units or something like that.
Cool. I've heard the teams get really huge. Did you get to any of that in the demo? There was some review I read said that there were like, dozens of what fighters you were kind of queuing up at the beginning and trying to sort of build a team out of. It obviously starts smaller, so the scale of it sounds a little overwhelming, I think.
Yeah, I imagine. So I don't know how big the army sizes eventually get. You start out with, I think, 3 units, which can have a maximum of 6, but at the start you can only place 2 because you're just starting out, so 2 characters per unit. But bump that up to 6, and it seemed like you could have at least 7 or 8 different units on the battlefield at a time. So that's what like 40 or 50 guys running around,
right?
And then that's not even accounting for all the enemy units that are just roaming around. So I could see by the time you get to the end of this game, having some pretty massive confrontations happening. But even then, it always just boils down to a maximum of 6-on-6 characters fighting each other at one time.
Oh, gotcha.
For the most part, I really enjoyed it. It's been a while since I played a tactics game, but there have been games like Tactics Ogre especially, where I would just sit down with it one evening and just be like, okay, well, I'm just going to spend the entire evening working on my team composition and seeing who best supports the others, and what the most effective sort of loadout of characters would be. And like I was saying, if that's your thing, this seems like the game you should be playing, because that is all this game is about. There's a storyline to it as well. The premise is the kingdom of Cornea has been overrun by a renegade general, and you are the ousted prince who is now the leader of the Liberation Army trying to take it back, which is kind of a little disappointingly standard as far as sort of RPG plots go.
Mm-hmm.
13 Sentinels had just an unbelievable storyline. And I definitely wasn't expecting a follow-up sort of on the same level, because, how could you even follow up 13 Sentinels? But I don't know if it gets a little more complex later on, or there's some more twists thrown in, but at this point it just feels like sort of an excuse to, recruit all these different units into your rebel army and take back the capital. But who knows, maybe it gets crazy at the end. So there's a little bit of that, a little bit of storyline tying everything together. Oh, plus there's just intra-unit social links. So the more time your characters spend together in one unit, the greater their rapport with each other will grow, and the unlockable conversations that come out of that, if you're really into that sort of thing.
Oh, this sounds familiar.
So it is just so much stuff to keep track of. If you want to manage 100 different units based on their stats and also their social links to each other, yeah, like I said, this is a game you could potentially spend probably hundreds of hours playing.
Cool. It sounds really interesting. I don't know if it sounds like my kind of thing. There's a demo for this, like you said, and I was thinking maybe I would check that out. But I also heard that it was like 5 hours long, and that there's kind of a lot you're doing. And I'm like, I don't know if I have the bandwidth for this right now. So in general, yeah, it just sort of sounds like a lot of like stats management. And I'm not sure if that's accurate or not, but it's just the way that I was kind of imagining what kind of meant to play would feel like. Just did not feel like my particular brand of thing.
Yeah, I wasn't sure if that was sort of like what you look for in an RPG, just sort of like the team building and, strategizing around that sort of thing. I didn't really get to the point in the demo where it got difficult enough where I felt like I needed to sit down and just take a look at all my like unit skills and everything and figure out who was going to work best with each other, which is another thing. So I don't know if it gets more difficult later on, because I was able to get through not the entire demo, but as much of it as I did without a lot of difficulty. And this was playing it on, I think, normal. I ended up playing 13 Sentinels on easy for the tactics sections of that, because I was much more interested in the story in that game. But in this one, like I was saying, the story is like not super interesting. So I feel like I wouldn't want to turn the actual strategy portions, turn the difficulty down on that too much, because then it would just be like, why am I even doing this? Everybody is just, steamrolling over the enemy without a second thought. But I did see sort of the potential there, because like the sort of sample matchups it gives you are very cool in that it's like, oh yeah, this is like, if you really know what you're doing, you can set it up so your units just never take a single point of damage, and like everybody is like dead before they can even act on the other side. So that was very exciting. But for the most part, I was able to just sort of like fumble my way through it and just think like, oh, okay, I will just set up my army later. Right now, we're just sort of like collecting everybody who I can in this demo.
Cool. So it sounds unique.
Yeah, it's definitely pretty weird. I'm not sure any other games out there that like use this exact sort of this formula where you're sort of just like building the team and then setting them to auto battle. But I thought it was pretty interesting. I got to the point actually where like you have the option whenever your units, like whenever they go into a confrontation, you can watch the battle play out, or you can just hit the start button and it will keep you on the map screen and just tell you how the battle ended up.
Oh, really?
And yeah, so it just like saves you a little bit of time. Like the battles are very cool to watch because it's all like hand drawn, like these enormous sprites, sort of in that Vanillaware style. But afterwards, after like maybe 3 or 4 hours into the demo, I was just like, well, I kind of know the result going into this because you show me, so I don't need to see everybody just carry out their orders or whatever. So I'll just kind of skip through everything.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
Sorry, it is tangentially related to a conversation that Sarah and I had today. We were watching a home remodel show. And I was saying, the best part of any home remodel show is I really just want to see kind of the first 5 minutes to see how ugly the house is. And then I want to see the last 5 minutes to see how nice they make it. Right. So there needs to be like a button on the DVR that allows you to like just skip from 5 minutes in to 5 minutes before the end. And because all the stuff in between is pretty standard, like people goofing off, or, oh my God, they pulled down a wall and there's asbestos, or, water damage or something like that. And I wonder if they can get it fixed in time. And it's pretty standard drama at this point on HGTV. So I don't need any of that stuff. I just want to see the finale. And it feels like this game has that button. Like you could just sort of like, you queue it all up and see what's happening, and you can skip right to the results. You see the finale.
Yeah. Well, it's funny because it just tells you more or less how each battle is going to end up. And it's not like...
Oh, really? Like in the forecast of like how it's going to go.
Yeah, well, it's like, in Fire Emblem or XCOM or whatever, it's like, you have an 80% chance of hitting this guy.
Oh, right, yeah.
Except it'll take it to the next step where it says, if you put these enemies together, or you put these two units together, this side is going to end up taking 30 damage, and this other side is going to be completely dead. So you're like, okay, well, that sounds good to me. But then sometimes it's like the other way around. You just think like, oh, wait a minute. So why is this unit going to get slaughtered when they were just doing so well against this other guy. And at that point, it's not even like, okay, I'm going to watch the battle to see how it plays out and maybe learn something from that. It's just like, no, I'm not even going to have that battle take place. I'm just going to swap in somebody else because like that's a much better plan. So yeah, at some point, you just end up skipping the battles unless it, sometimes if it was like the enemy commander, I would watch the battle play out because they would have some kind of like plot relevant dialogue that was kind of interesting. But for the most part, it kind of gets very like simplified or like reduced into just you marching these little guys around the map, and like a battle pops up, it's over in like 1 second because you hit the skip button, and then you just move on to the next stronghold.
Just kind of like flexing your units, looking for like your statistical advantage, and then jumping ahead.
Yeah.
That's interesting.
One fun thing you can do is like if you march units around as like a group, so you have like 3 or 4 of them at once, if one of them gets into a fight and there are other units still in proximity, you can like cycle between all the ones nearby to find the one that has the best matchup against whoever you ran into. So that was very helpful. So you could have like a very infantry-based unit, and then another one with like archers and all the support characters, and then one with the spellcasters, and you go, oh, okay, so this one looks like spellcasters do the best job, so we're going to send in those guys. And so as long as you keep everybody sort of grouped up, you always have that option to just like switch between whoever your attacking party is, which I thought was very cool. So yeah, just a wealth of options if you sort of play your cards right in this.
Well, it's cool that it sort of like, it just sort of breaks down to math like that, but still somehow remains compelling, because it could sort of sound like, like you're not really playing the video game, that you're just sort of like watching a movie, right?
Well, I mean, in this case, the game is really in the setup and like composing your army ahead of time. And then once you send it out, it's like, okay, how are they going to do?
Right.
So just, adjust your expectations slightly. You're not playing like Final Fantasy or anything. It's more of like a larger or higher level strategy game.
But if you have an 89% chance of success, it's likely going to play out the way you think it is, right?
Yeah, I don't really know how like randomness factors into it. Like a couple times I saw a unit get a critical hit on somebody, and I was like, okay, wait a minute. Is that because they have a passive skill that guarantees they're going to have a critical hit, or is it just because of the matchup, or is it like a random occurrence? So I'm not totally sure about that. Yeah, but I don't think it's... I feel like the outcome that it shows you before each battle is pretty reliable. I never had something that turned out other than what said was going to happen. So that's a relief. Yeah, it's not like XCOM where you're just like, all right, 99% chance the sniper shot is going to hit, and then it just like curves around and hits one of your squad mates in the back of the head.
Right, yes, yeah. That sounds like XCOM.
Yeah.
Was thinking exactly that. It's right. An 89% chance of success means an 11% chance that the entire team gets wiped and everybody gets, and the planet is taken over by aliens. Yeah,
just like ricochets off an oil drum and blows up your mothership or whatever.
Right, exactly. Cool. Maybe I will check out the demo. It sounds interesting. At the very least, to sort of like wrap my brain around the conceit of it, because it's definitely unique.
Yeah. I think I don't really have time for this on my sort of gaming schedule at the moment, but I definitely plan to revisit it at some point. Hopefully I'll remember like who all the characters were in the plot at that point. But I had a really good time just doing the planning sort of side of things, as opposed to, the actual dirty work down in the field.
Cool. Well, the game that I've been spending the most amount of time with over the last couple of weeks is Pocket Card Jockey Ride On. For those who have listened to this podcast for a while now, you know that this is not this is a new game to the Switch, but it's not a new game to the world. This was a 3DS game. This is actually when DG and I were doing kind of the 3DS sunsetting, what games would you recommend getting on the eShop before they close it episodes. Pocket Card Jockey was definitely one of my recommendations. And it has been rescued from kind of the trash heap and resurrected here on the Switch. It was like a stealth drop on the last Nintendo Direct at the end of February. Yeah, this is a really cool, fun game that I'm glad is getting sort of a second life. There's a mobile version of this as well on iOS. It has not made its way to Android yet, so I guess it did have a second life.
I think, well, at least the last time I checked, it was on Apple Arcade, so it's sort of like it is on iOS, but you also have to have a subscription to that thing. So
there's a barrier, right?
Yeah, I feel like I would probably rather play the Switch version.
Yeah,
although it also seems like it worked really well as a mobile game. So I don't know. If you have an Apple Arcade subscription anyway, then why not check it out?
The Switch version is really good. It is so the hook here is that you are a jockey into horse racing, and you your first race does not go so well, and for you to be successful going forward, you imagine every horse race as you playing solitaire, and so as a player, you are essentially playing solitaire to fuel your success in the world of horse racing. The way that it handled this on the 3DS is the bottom screen was your hands of cards, your tableau, and the top screen was the racetrack. And you were kind of, as you would go into the turn on the course, it would turn into a game of solitaire, and you had to sort of play your cards right to clear your tableau, and you would build enthusiasm, and you would build stamina, and it would hopefully move you to success in the world of horse racing. If you played poorly, if you left a bunch of cards behind, you'd run out of stamina, you'd get bumped by other horses and stuff like that, and you wouldn't go so well. And there's a life path that all the horses go on, and they get to different races depending on how successful they've been. You get to G1s, which are all adult horses, and generally have really good stamina and are much longer races. So those would have like 5 or 6 games of solitaire you would have to just hammer your way through on pretty intense timers to be successful at. Or you could take kind of the lazier path, and as long as you finish kind of in the top 6, you're okay. So it was really interesting. It was quite full featured for something that was a bit of an, just a fun little diversion, just a game that really was just an excuse to play solitaire on your 3DS. But it had some kind of fun characters. The jockey is real kind of like a bit of a loser and a bit of a smart ass. And your coach is like appropriately kind of gruff and always disappointed in you. So the interactions between the two of them between the races was always kind of fun. But yeah, it really was just about playing solitaire really well and building long streams of pulling cards out of the deck and really just kind of getting to that ever elusive complete wipe where you don't have any cards left behind at the end, and lather, rinse, repeat from there.
I ended up playing this past the demo, I think, on the 3DS.
Yeah.
But I remember being very skeptical. I was just like, you're playing like solitaire and there's a horse race taking place at the same time. Okay. But it like somehow ends up working out pretty well. Like it's just like that weird Nintendo combination of like 2 completely different ideas. It's like, oh yeah, I'm playing solitaire to keep the horse race going. What else would I be doing?
Right. It makes perfect sense.
Right.
So all of that makes its way to the transition to the Switch. The cool thing about
is it a port or is it a sequel?
I don't think it's a sequel. It's definitely kind of the bones of the same game. But it is. I don't think it shares any code. It's all in HD now. It's full screen on the 3DS. I'm sorry, on the Switch. It's all touch. You don't have to use the controllers for any of it. You can use. It's actually a lot easier and faster to just hammer through the cards and pick your horses and stuff like that by using the touchscreen, and everything is touchable. Even if you go into the shop in between races to buy carrots for your horse so that they run faster and stuff like that. All of that's touch interface. That would not work entirely on the 3DS. So I don't think it like shares any like DNA with the 3DS, other than it just sort of being the inspiration for this much more full-featured kind of grander experience. There's a lot more things to do. There's a lot more horses. There's like skill trees. There's little modifiers you can unlock by leveling up your horse, which was not a thing in the original game. So this is like RPG elements to it, where you get little like badges that go on your horse's profile, and it makes them race better, or run faster in the final third, or they can kind of draft behind other horses if they're like in the middle of the pack. It actually fuels them, and they get more stamina and can finish stronger. And other
here you
things
go.
like
Now
that.
you're just playing Unicorn Overlord.
Right.
Like,
Yes, yeah.
I'm gonna get my horse to synergize with my other horses.
Right. And each horse gets 3 little badges, and you can kind of mix and match them. You can buy new ones and upgrade them and stuff like that. So you definitely get some skill tree kind of satisfaction out of it. There's a lot more items you can buy in between. So it's not really just you could have playing cards and then going back to the stable and then playing cards. You're going back to the stable with the coins that you won to buy upgrades, to buy new perks, to buy, like I said, carrots or a crop or something like that. There's goggles you can buy. You can equip 3 things going into every race, and the goggles allow you to sort of see what cards are coming or see what the next card should be will light up. It'll give you prompts and stuff like that if you linger for too long, depending on which goggles you have on. So they've found a way to add a bunch of other stuff to a thing that already worked really well, I think. It's not quite as streamlined or as sort of simplistic as it was before, but for a game that's only like $8, it is like dozens of hours of things that you can do. And that core gameplay of just simply playing solitaire and trying really hard to be good at it remains compelling. I mean, it's the reason we all played solitaire on our computers for 100 years when we first
started. Like at the end of the day, you're just playing solitaire. Like,
yeah, because solitaire is still fun. Yeah. There's a bunch of different owners now too that you can get that you can work for, and they all have very eccentric personalities. One of them is like a K-pop star who's obsessed with cats, so you can get a horse from her that has a little cat that rides on the back of the horse with you. So it's real funny to see your sort of like your jockey and your horse racing across the field with a little cat sitting on the back of the saddle and his tail bouncing as the horse goes. I forget what some of the other ones. Oh, there's a crazy like eccentric billionaire who bears no resemblance to anybody in the real world.
Of course.
He's super fun and like chomping on a cigar and waving stacks of cash around and stuff like that. And they're just goofy archetypes, but it's silly and it's much more kind of fleshed out than it was in the 3DS version. There's also a PvP mode in this where you can actually play solitaire and racehorses against other people online, which did not exist in the 3DS version at all. So yeah, there's a lot more to this package. All of it still works. None of it feels broken or like it's too much or anything like that. It's just, they did a really, really nice job of kind of like upgrading Pocket Card Jockey to this next thing. The heart of which is still you just playing solitaire, like I said.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Although there's multiplayer solitaire, which feels like kind of an oxymoron, but could be interesting.
Well, you're still playing your solitaire versus the other person playing their solitaire.
But you're just racing then?
Right. Yeah, more or less. Yeah, I think the competition is in the race and is not in the solitaire.
Well, I mean, you're just racing to finish your solitaire game. I wasn't referring to the actual like literal race taking place in the background. Yeah. Several levels going on. Yeah.
So it's silly. It shouldn't work as well as it does, and it works really, really well. I put dozens of hours into this thing on the 3DS. And since it came out at the end of February, for a game that I have already played, I have put probably a dozen more hours into it.
Yeah, man.
It is
this
like the
at the
best
same time
gaming,
as
honestly.
Balatro, just
I know.
a wealth of card games.
This is all I have done for the last 3 weeks is bounce back and forth between Balatro and Pocket Card Jockey. I'm really just playing cards on my 3DS. Yeah. Sarah actually called it out because at night, I'll lay in bed with the Switch and play one of these 2 games, sometimes both of them back to back. And she's like, is this what you do now?
I'm tired of that card game. You play the other card game.
They play the other card game. They flex different muscles. Balatro is like some whole other like
Oh yeah.
like
No,
algebra of card games, and it does get like intense sometimes, and it's a roguelike too, so like I'll fail out of that miserably, and, and like, all right, well, I need something I know I can be good at. I'm gonna race horses for a little while. But yeah, it my partner did ask, like, what are you doing with video games right now, because it seems like you only play these two things, and Yakuza.
Right.
So yeah,
Still looking for the card game with that one.
There's got to be one in there somewhere, I'm sure. But yeah, it's super fun. I would totally recommend Pocket Card Jockey if you have a Switch. If I was gonna say, if you have a 3DS, you're screwed. There's no way to get it anymore. But would definitely recommend playing this on your Switch, or like DJ said, if you have Apple Arcade. It's got to be great on mobile. I'm sure it's perfectly built for it.
Yeah. I wonder how much of this version just came directly from the iOS version. Because when you said they like added a bunch of new like owners or different horses you can unlock or whatever. It's like, I wonder if that's just like stuff they've been adding to the game for the last like however many years it's existed on iOS.
No, maybe. Yeah. I'm not sure.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's cool that it's sort of like back on a Nintendo platform.
Right.
And especially out of the Apple sort of like subscription walled garden kind of thing.
Well, and sort of saved from disappearing forever on the 3DS eShop. So
yeah, that too.
Yeah. The thing I do want to point out, and I didn't mention this at the beginning, this is a Game Freak game. So for all of you Pokemon people out there, this is a small team at Game Freak that has assembled this thing, and I think probably has worked pretty diligently to keep it alive for the last 8, 9, 10 years, probably since the original 3DS version of it came out. So it probably, I imagine, has a lot of the same hooks that kind of keep people compelled to play Pokemon games over and over again, kind of built into it as well. And it's just kind of charming and fun. So you can probably see some of the DNA between this and Pokemon if you have played enough of them.
You know, revival I'm waiting for is, when are they going to bring back Rusty's Real Deal Baseball? Did you play that one on the 3DS?
I did. It was like the free to play one, right? Wasn't that the
it was like
hook?
It was free to play, but then the conceit was that, what did you do? You had to like spend real money to do things in that game. I forget if it was like in order to try mini games over or to like boost your stats or something. But that was like, it sounds kind of skeezy, but that was like, this is the entire point of the game. It's like you're gonna try and like, he's going to ask you to pay money for stuff, and you had to haggle with him. That was it. Right. And you said, and if you didn't haggle well, you could end up paying more. Yeah, well, I don't know if it was, technically you pay more. Like, you weren't getting as big of a discount as other people. I don't think there was ever any situation where you were just like, you know what? You're paying 10 times as much as this just to spite you or whatever. Right, yeah. But yeah, no, I was like, this is such a weird concept. Like, I'm all for it, but just the process of making payments on the 3DS was such a nightmare. It was just it was such a chore to play that game. But now it was so slow. You just like plug your credit card into it, like put your thumbprint down or whatever, and just like sucking money out of your bank account before you know it, going through this game. Like, that's a game whose time has come. Yeah. Oh, that's funny. What was the other one that was the sticker game? Oh, the sticker shop or whatever. That needs to come back too. I want some stickers. That was fun. Yeah, because you could get the little stickers, then you could sort of decorate your 3DS home screen with all the stickers that you unlocked from different video games. Yeah, man, all these really contentious, like very micro-transaction heavy games. Back. Well, of course, there were all the Game Pass games and stuff like that too. Not Game Pass, Street Pass. All the Street Pass games. Oh, yeah. That eventually came too. Street Pass HD collection would be incredible. Yeah, I'd back that. Bring it on. Just having a carrier switch everywhere. Yeah, I think it was like, it's been a while, obviously, since the Switch came out, and I think that was one of the things at the beginning. I was like, what do you mean there's no Street Pass? How do you have a Nintendo console with no Street Pass? It'll come eventually, and we're 7 years in now, and it has not come. So. Still, you're keeping a light on for that one. Yeah. Well, cool. Yeah. So, Pocket Card Jockey. Would recommend, clearly quite enthusiastic about it. Cool. Well, like I said, I never really got around to it, or like playing a lot of it on the 3DS, but Now I have a little more time to get around to it before they shut down the Switch eShop.
Right. Yeah, you don't have to save it. Yeah. We should wrap this thing up. If you need any more video game hangover in your brain, please follow us on Twitter at twitter.com/VGHangover. Or you can get show notes and links and tell us what you thought about this episode at VGHangover.com. We would love for you to hang out with us on Discord. You can chat about video games and other fun stuff. You can get a link to that at VGHangover.com. And we would love for you to tune in this coming Monday night, March 25th at 10 p.m. Eastern Time to watch DJ and I play the newest We Were Here game.
Yeah.
Yeah. What else we got going on? We would love for you to subscribe, rate, and review us on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, which is not a thing anymore. I need to update the spreadsheet. Spotify, YouTube, Amazon, those still exist, right? Anywhere else you can get a podcast, maybe help us out by telling your friends about the show as well.
Yeah, really help us out, bringing new listeners. They can share their own alternate versions of Unicorn Overlord title. God, I still, at this point, I still not sure if I'm getting it right. Unicorn Overlord.
Got it. I got you now. I got you in your brain. Yep.
Yeah. This is a whole thing I've been dealing with. But anyway, yeah, we really appreciate it. Just tell your friends about the show. We'd also appreciate, is that how this works? Yeah, we'd appreciate Fear of Dark for our intro and outro music this week. If you'd like to hear more of his work, you can go to fearofdark.bandcamp.com. We put a couple of albums in your cart. Maybe send him your own take on the Unicorn Overlord title. He will be very confused.
He saw a video game. Who told you to email me? Yep. We'll be back. We'll be back Monday with our Monday night streaming, and then we'll be back in 2 weeks with another episode right here in your feed. Until then, this is Randy Dickinson.
This is DJ Ross.
Thank you so much for listening to Video Game Hangover. Goodbye.
Good night.
See ya.